Cheers, guys. Epix911, welcome to the Elitist Geek VR news for July 16th. So this first news item, would I call it concerning? Probably. There are signs, according to Road to VR, that appear to indicate that HTC is contemplating a Vive 2.0 for later this year. Now, there's a couple of schools of thought on that for me. First of all, no matter which way you cut it, the bottom line is I think it's too early, too premature if that is the case. That's not to say that there, wouldn't be things made better by a 2.0 in the proper time frame. There's common complaints about the bulkiness of the Vive, right? I don't mind that too much. I kind of prefer the form-fitting nature of the Vive as a result of that, right? Because you can really kind of adjust it to your face. But absolutely, it does generate more heat for me than the Rift does. And yes, it is heavier. The one area that I don't think you can make an argument about is that it doesn't have, it has a heavier set of cables running from it. I mean, that's just the reality, right? It's the truth. It's a much heavier, bulkier cable. Now, granted, it provides a lot of, the room VR experience that the Rift currently doesn't provide out of the box. So that is a trade-off. It's that old early adopter syndrome, right? And if they do go this route, you got to wonder, okay, what does that mean for early adopters? And there's a couple of ways they can go about that. The first way is the Nintendo way, which is basically, screw you. We're going to come out with something better, cooler, and it's going to sell lots, and you're going to buy it at full price, even though you supported us by buying the first incarnation of this device. And Nintendo has done that time and time again. You look at any of their DS models. The first DS model is the one that most people tend to not remember, right? It's the bulkier one. It's the one that has crappy screen technology. It's usually bulkier. Look at the 3DS. If I could go back in time and not have purchased that initial 3DS, I probably would have just waited, because the new 3DS is 10 times better with the stable 3D technology. I actually use the features for starters, right? But where I'm going with that is there's no discount, and I would hope that if HTC went that route, given what we've gone through, or a lot of us have gone through, that there would be some kind of discount program in place for early adopters, even if it's some kind of modification set, right? Where, okay, they end up changing the cable structure, it's much lighter now, here's a new cable set for early adopters, and it's only going to cost you 50%, and have it be a reasonable flat fee, fine. If that even just addresses the cable aspect, right? Even if that 2.0 has a smaller, less bulky HMD, at least early adopters feel that they're getting something out of that 2.0 and something out of having been an early adopter. So, I hope it's not this year. And you've always got to be careful when they talk years. Are they talking calendar years? Are they talking fiscal years? Because remember, a lot of Asian companies use a fiscal structure, a fiscal year that usually has a March year end, right? So when you're talking fourth quarter calendar year versus fourth quarter fiscal year, unless the two are the same, you could be out by as much as 3 months, which is huge. But even if you look at it that way, in this case, I still think it's too premature. So even if that was the case where it was a fourth quarter type thing, and HTC Vive comes out with a 2.0. Now, coming out with news about the 2.0, I'd be okay with that. Just would hope they don't launch it that early, right? And if they do, they offer some type of mod kit or something for us early adopters so that we at least get some of the benefits of that revised tech. On the Rift front, there's word coming out in the latest release, the 1.6, on what is possibly being added to the Oculus Touch controllers. Now, there's a couple of features that they've thrown around in those update notes that we haven't seen out on actual sets yet. And one of them is a start button, or a new enter button. And it'll be on the left controller, and it's basically going to be like the Xbox One's start button, right? Which is, it doesn't have it labeled, but I believe that should be it. Hopefully I'm right. So it's going to mimic that and retain that functionality on the Oculus Touch, except it'll be on the left controller. The other thing the notes indicate, the release notes, is they've made some changes to kind of their low-end rumbling. And they call it buffered haptics. So there's two types. There's one where every 3 milliseconds, so if there's, subtle effects, every 3 milliseconds, you'll be able to feel that. You'll have that feedback. And then they've got more simple effects that are every 33 milliseconds. Now, remember, milliseconds, we're not dealing with seconds. We're dealing with thousands of seconds, right? So huge difference in terms of a millisecond versus an actual second. 1,000 milliseconds in a second. Milli. For those that don't know, and what is that going to mean for the end product? Well, we don't know. At least I don't, because I still haven't had a chance to test one of these. I would love to test out the Oculus Touch just to really compare, right? I'm so curious how it feels, how it functions. Can't wait. And like I said, it'll definitely be probably a day one purchase for me, because I think it's going to make the Rift that much better. All kinds of possibilities and arguments that you could make. Too little, too late. Absolutely. You could make arguments a mile long. But with all of that still said, I want to see it. I don't want the Rift to fail. I don't want the Vive to fail. I want them both to succeed. And I'm going to support them both as long as I can, kind of to further that end, right? And if it means buying pretty much everything that comes out for them, I'll do that. But that's okay. This is a lifelong thing for me. This is something I've been wanting for so long that doesn't bother me, right? I'm not interested in taking a side. I want to support both sides because I want VR to work. I want it to stick around this time because I missed it the last time, right? In the early 90s, and that sucked. But in hindsight, it was probably a good thing, right? Did we want VGA VR? Probably not. But how much further ahead would we have been now had that technology taken off the first time? That's kind of the way I look at it. The Rig for VR, this is an Upload VR article, is a new headset for PlayStation VR future owners. Now, like the Vive, there's no built-in headset for the PlayStation VR. So you're left to either using, a bulkier unit like this Sennheiser, right? Or an earbud system like that, right? Now, my preference has been, I've tried the bulkier units with my Vive. I just find it too much stuff on my head because, as we mentioned in the first article, the Vive is bulky enough to begin with, right? And then to add a full headset like this is just, it's too much with all the heat generation. For me personally, that's just a personal preference. So I much prefer the earbuds. Now, not having tried the PlayStation VR HMD, I don't know if that same argument is going to hold. So if anybody out there has tried it or, demoed it, that's not to say that model won't change until release, but at least you can give me an indication, is it as bulky as the Vive if you've tried both? I'd love for you to let me know in the comments below. But so far, this is the first one, and it's Haptronics, I believe, is the company. Plantronics, not Haptronics, Plantronics, and it's called the Rig 4 VR headset. So interesting to see how that's going to feel and how it's going to fit, but I hope there are some earbud options as well. I'm sure there will be official ones, that is, right? Obviously, there's probably nothing to prevent you from using your own earbuds in the system. Now, a couple of Star Wars related articles that I want to talk about. The first one, also on Upload VR, has to do with Star Wars Trials on Tatooine, which, for kind of fans of Star Wars and fans of VR, it's a trailer that we've seen for a while now. It's the trailer where you've got the guy with the lightsaber at the foot of the Millennium Falcon with R2-D2 fighting off waves of troopers, right? that's pretty much all we've seen. But anyways, it looks like it's going to hit HTC Vive next week. So this will be a game I purchase. I mean, I'm a huge sci-fi geek. Doctor Who, Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, you name it. Babylon 5, I love my sci-fi. I love it a lot. And there's a lot of good sci-fi out there. The more, the better. So throw it at me. I will purchase it, providing it's not complete and utter crap, right? But so far, it looks good. And is it another Wave-style game? It looks like it on the surface, but it's Star Wars. So I will definitely try it. I just hope there's some depth to it and a bit of longevity, right? I don't want this to be another 30 to 60 minute experience and then you're kind of done. So hopefully that's not the case. The next Star Wars article has to do with Lucasfilm making a virtual reality Darth Vader movie. Now, David Goyer, who's the author of Man of Steel and Batman Begins, he's doing the writing for this. And what intrigued me about this is, and we're going to get to this in another article, I think right after this one, but it's the 360-degree content that's out there right now. It varies tremendously from absolute meh to, okay, this isn't bad, I get the hype, right? But a lot of it is still passive. It's passive, it's spectator-based, it's not participant, right? And what's different about this one is, so it's a movie about Darth Vader, but there's going to be day-night cycles, so it's a persistent movie set, right? Where day-night cycles are going to change long after you put your headset down and walk away. The story unfolds within that environment, right? You're going to be able to touch objects, even touch characters. I don't know what the impact of that is. I imagine the story has momentum and continues, so there's probably no way to really impact and alter the story. That would be my guess. I could be wrong, but you can touch objects, you can interact with the environment. So just for that alone, I'm intrigued. And that's an article on The Verge. And as usual, I'll link it below so you guys can check that out if you want to look into it a little bit more. But it's a 360-degree movie that adds something. And that interaction, that got my interest. So I'm really curious to see where that goes. No sign or mention of when it's out, just that it's a work in progress, like so much in VR, right? Now, the last movie article has to do with a theater that's opening up in Toronto. And Toronto is the largest city in my country, Canada. And for any Torontonians, I apologize for what I'm about to say, but we refer to them as the center of the universe because, well, they tend to think of themselves as the center of the universe. Their baseball team, their basketball team, that the rest of us all care as deeply and passionately as they do about their beloved Leafs, Raptors, and Blue Jays. Here's the secret. We don't. But don't tell them that. Let them keep that illusion, right? Anyways, I digress. Back to the point of this is there's going to be a 20-seat theater kind of in the restaurant bar part of Toronto opening up. It's going to have 20 seats, white leather, Samsung Gear VR units, and they're going to be showing 360-degree content. Now, like I said earlier, there's a lot of meh to, yeah, not bad out there, but a lot of it is spectator-based, right? And I know in a previous video I said, look, the best way to market VR is get it out there, get it in people's faces and try it. Of course, what I was referring to was non-passive VR, right? Let people try out, absolutely, the virtual tourism type stuff, but the interactive VR is mainly what my focus on with that statement was, right? My main concern with this, so this theater is going to stay open just for a few months. It's going to expose a lot of people. They pay $20 admission, so 20 people, $20, 400 kind of per movie cycle is what they're going to generate in revenue, which is not a lot, but points to the fact that they're only open for a few months. But what it's going to do is, my concern is for the people who don't know a lot about VR. We know the differences between AR and VR. We've talked about that at length on the channel, in comments, in content. We know the subtleties and differences between the different types of VR, right? Whether it's room, seated, etc. Right? There's absolute differences, and we know what those differences are, and there's pros and cons to each. My concern with this theater is that a lot of people will walk away thinking that is the VR experience, right? Their limited, passive, spectator-based session reflects on VR as a whole. It's still marketing, and you could argue that even negative publicity is good publicity, but in this instance, I would much rather have had it, the article talk about a VR gaming or demo store that's opened up for a few months than one with 360-degree content, because not only is it passive and spectator type based, it's not represented with a lot of good content, right? There's some decent 360 stuff out there, but there's a lot of schlock and cruft, right? And again, how many people are going to walk away with negative opinions based on that and then taint VR as a whole with that same brush, right? That would be my only concern. But other than that, I think it's cool from the point of view that, look, people are going to be able to see a different way of looking at a movie. I just wish there was some education behind, look, this is a different way of watching a movie in VR, but there's still other possibilities. We're just not showing you those, right? But you can also do this, 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 and this. But that's me, and probably way beyond the scope of what they're trying to achieve. So, granted. So that is going to be till September 11th. If I get more details on that, in case you're in that area, forgive me for the Toronto remark, but I was serious. Anyways, guys, a couple more gaming-related videos coming up that I will release today, and the long-awaited Revive. I have got my Vive tinkering done with that, hopefully soon, and we'll be able to get that uploaded today, and I'm also going to upload something on the Solace project. And again, just start working aggressively. Since I've got no more tinkering, knock on wood, I will get them out forthwith. As always, guys, cheers and have an awesome one.